You probably looked at the title of this video and said, I want this deck right now because I want to get to Legend. But I promise you, if I gave you the deck code and you played the exact same deck as me on your way up to Legend, you probably would not get the same win rate because there's so many variables that come down to Hearthstone, but the main aspect of it is the pilot of the deck. No matter where you get your Hearthstone decks from, whether it's from HS Replay, Vicious Syndicate, YouTube, wherever it may happen to be, the common denominator between all of that is the player playing the deck. So to help you on your Legend climb, I'm going to give you 5 amazing tips to help you climb faster and more effectively in Hearthstone. The first major tip is to have a deck tracker. Now, I know this is a really obvious tip, but you'd be surprised with the amount of people who don't actually use a deck tracker, and I would recommend Firestone. Thank you to Firestone for sponsoring this video. If you want to level up your Hearthstone game, make sure you're using Firestone. Firestone helps you keep track of your deck, what's in it, what you've played, and what's in your hand. Firestone also keeps track of what your opponent has played, what potential secrets they could have, and so much more information that will help you win more. Firestone also keeps track of every single game you played, and you could also watch each individual replay to see what exactly went wrong and how you won or lost the game. Firestone also keeps track of your entire collection to let you know how much of each set you've actually completed. It also lets you know how many packs you opened over the years in case you were curious how many classic packs you've actually ended up opening. There is a bunch of achievements that you can go for in Firestone to show off to all your friends. Firestone is the perfect companion to have while playing Hearthstone, so make sure you download it with the link in the description. Now, the reason why I would recommend Firestone more than any other deck tracker is the ability to look at your replays directly through the deck tracker. For instance, I was playing a game of Owl OTK Warlock, and I ended up actually losing this game to a Hunter. I know that I did not play this deck perfectly, and I know that there will be a lot of mistakes if I watch the replay, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. When watching the replay for this match, I realized that I kept Tour Guide in the opening hand against a Hunter. And the more I thought about it, I think I realized I made a huge mistake because Tour Guide does not really help me against what Hunter wants to do, and there's much better cards I would rather have in my opening hand. So this was already a mistake that I can reflect on by looking at the replay. And that's my first tip. After you finish a game, or if you feel like you just can't win anymore, or you consistently lose, whatever deck it may happen to be, reflect on your games, and it helps a lot more if you have the replays in front of you. Here's another quick tip. Reflecting is the fastest way to learn anything. So if you want to get better at Hearthstone, the fastest way of doing it is reflecting after each match and learning from your mistakes. Tip number 2 is picking a good deck to use to climb. Now, it's not just about picking a good deck, it's also about picking a deck that you enjoy. For instance, Edgar Shadow Priest might be the best deck to use at Legend currently, but you may not enjoy the actual playstyle of this deck, so it's important that you try to find one in around tier 1, tier 2, maybe even tier 3 if you're feeling extra picante, to find a deck that is good and you actually enjoy playing it. Let's say I wanted to play, I don't know, Spell Druid, right? Make sure you also learn what you should be mulliganing for at the start of each game, and you could do this with the free tier of HS Replay. Just go down to bronze through gold, hit the mulligan win rate, and just look for the green cards in almost every single matchup, and you will notice that your win rate will improve substantially. Tip number 3 is about understanding how to win in each matchup. Here I am against a Demon Hunter deck, and my win condition is basically to flood the board in such a way that they have a hard time clearing it, and I can go for a huge lethal push. So that's exactly how I want to play this matchup. What helps me do this? Pack Mule, not really. Composting, not really. The Battle Guard could be a huge mana cheat that helps me get on board early, so I will keep it. And I don't mind Adorable Infestation, but I think we could do even better. It is extremely important that you know how to play a matchup in Hearthstone. If you have a really poor matchup against the deck you're going against, it's very important to know what your outs are and how you can actually win the game, versus if you have a great matchup, then securing your victory should be a lot easier because you know how to play the matchup. If you're not sure if your deck has a good or bad win rate against a specific class, a very easy way to check is find your deck on HS Replay. So in this case, I'll show Taunt Druid because that was what I was just playing in the previous clip. And then you want to go to Overview and just look at the win percentages. So as you can see, I have a pretty good matchup against majority of the decks. Mage is a little harder, Priest is a little harder, Shaman's a little harder, but overall it's about 50-50. So this deck seems like it's pretty good in the current meta game. To showcase another example of this, I know that Druid is probably going to be playing either the Ramp Druid currently in the metagame or some kind of token deck. To make sure I don't just auto lose to a faster deck, I am going to keep School Spirits, but the rest of them I will probably throw back to have a better chance against the other one. This lets me have a way to clear a board potentially and save me from potential a early wide board from the Druid. And as you can see, even though it's much later in the game, having the guaranteed School Spirits just lets me get an easy clear, and I kept this card for that specific reason and I was rewarded for it. You might be asking yourself, how do you know which kind of decks are in the metagame so I know what to mulligan for when I go a specific class? And a very easy way to do this is, again, go to HS Replay and just go to the meta tab and go through bronze through gold just so you have a good idea. Of course, if you have the actual like premium version of HS Replay, use diamond through legend or legend. It'll give you a better example. Most of the time you can get a really good idea of what's in the game right now by just looking through bronze through gold. And as you can see, Taunt Druid is extremely popular. So if you go against a Druid, you should expect some kind of aggro type deck, either with the Taunt Druid or the Beast Druid. Clan Druid is definitely popular, but it's not nearly as popular as these two decks together. Warrior, you should expect Quest Warrior. If you go against Shaman, you should expect Freeze Elemental Shaman. And you could use this in any form of metagame, but it gives you a really good indication on what kind of decks are in the current metagame. Tip number 4 is trying to predict what your opponent is going to do the following turn. As you could see, my opponent went coin into a 3-drop. So I could probably guess that there is going to be another 3-drop available for them in the next turn coming. So I want to try to prepare the best I can for the following turn. Is it worth using a Minefield to kill a minion? Maybe. Is it worth using the Blade Storm? Potentially. If we're going to be playing another minion, Blade Storm might get a little bit better, but I will want to play the Outrider's Axe anyway, so I'm actually okay using the Blade Storm here or the Minefield. Blade Storm is a little bit better overall, so I will use the Minefield, but by thinking about what my opponent will do next, I can make a more educated turn towards winning the game. And as you can see, they played another 3-drop. The last tip in this video is going to be on how to control your tilt. It is very easy to tilt in a game like Hearthstone because there is a sense of randomness to it. And sometimes your opponent will high roll, but it's important to understand that Hearthstone is a game of variance. Sometimes your opponent will high roll and sometimes you will high roll. And it's about managing those expectations when you play Hearthstone and understanding that as long as you're playing well enough every single game, eventually you will start to climb because the variance of high rolling and low rolling will level out. And it's important to manage these expectations because if you cannot, you will start playing on tilt. And when you start playing on tilt, you will notice that your plays get exponentially worse because you're not thinking straight. And you want to make sure when you're playing a game like Hearthstone, you have a clear mindset. It is important to make sure that when you are tilted, you're taking a break from the game because when you start playing when you're tilted, you'll start making a lot more mistakes. Go play Battlegrounds, go play a different game mode, go play a different game, walk away, do something else. It will help you because when you come back, you will play much better. Now, if you made it this far into the video, I'm going to reward you with the deck that I actually used to get to Legend, which was Quest Rogue. This deck performed very well in the current metagame, and there are so many different ways of playing the game, and that's why I fell in love with it. It was a deck that I really enjoyed playing, it did well in the metagame, and everything that I said in this video applies to this deck. Now, I did get lucky on the last game to get the Legend for a really nice pounce for a lethal, but that's just the nature of Hearthstone. Sometimes you high roll, sometimes you low roll. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.